What's up guys, Sean here, AN Productions, and last month was a little bit crazy. I didn't do an update video because I had a baby, which is a little bit insane. But no complaints, everyone is happy, everyone is healthy. It's been a bit exhausting, but we're mostly getting back on track. So just wanted to throw that out there. Other than that, you probably won't hear me talk about it too much. I'm probably gonna keep family type stuff private when possible, so just a heads up on that. So I wanted to cover two big things for this video. Alpha number 2, and I wanted to do an actual demo for the SodaScript system that I've been talking about for a long time. So Alpha number 2 is on track and pretty much ready to go. Our current timeline is to offer signups at the end of February, probably the last week, and then distribute keys and access in the first week of March. Like I said before, we will reach out to previous testers first and then open it up to new testers after that. And we're still looking at a limit of about 500 people. In the previous video, I think I said I was hoping to include a basic gem system and some of the character masteries. Unfortunately, those are not going to make it in for the alpha. While I am a little bit ahead of schedule for finishing up the features, I'd rather use the extra time for a bit of extra polish and to kind of make sure there aren't any major game-breaking bugs before we kind of throw this game out to 500 new people. Most importantly though was the SodaScript system that I was able to finish, which was probably my largest goal going into Alpha number 2. So I'm going to give you guys a little bit of a demo of that here in a minute. If you've been following for a long time, you might know that SodaScripting actually started out as more of a real interpreted scriptable programming language. I think I did a video on that probably 6 months ago, and the response to that wasn't great, and as I used it, I realized the system was convoluted, it wasn't that great, and ironically it wasn't as expressive enough as I wanted it to be for the game. You couldn't really formulate the exact commands that you wanted in any real easy kind of fashion. So instead, I kind of rebuilt it from the ground up. Now instead of a language, it's more of a list of triggers, and the triggers contain targets, conditions, and actions. And the way in which you order these triggers produces the logic for the auto combat system. And that part's actually been done for a while, but the tricky part was actually getting the front end sort of user interface visual part of it, because there's a lot of data moving around. There's a lot of considerations for, if you have a list of 10 triggers, each trigger has a condition and a target and an action, and you can change the priority of each piece. There's a lot of UI considerations that need to be taken into account to produce a menu, to produce a series of menus where you can actually edit a SodaScript. So I'm gonna go ahead and open up the game here. Okay, so we got our town here, and what we decided to do was that we added SodaScript basically as a subsection to the arena. So here's the arena right here in the middle, and you have ranked combat, which is pretty much like what the arena was in Soda Dungeon 1. But then we have a battle school, and battle school is where you can actually edit and assign the SodaScripts that you create for your classes. So if we go to edit scripts, you'll see that I have 2 in here. The first one is the default script. So right now the game actually uses one default script for all basic enemy and player interactions. If you want, you can look at that, you can't edit it, you can't change it. It's just to kind of give you an idea of what the game is doing behind the scenes, so you can kind of build on that yourself and maybe get an idea of how you want to make your own SodaScript. So instead we can go to new script, and you'll see over here a few basic options. You can rename it, edit it, or delete it. So whenever you make a script, you can call it whatever you want. So for example, if you really want to make something for the healer, you can name it healer and set that. The name, it doesn't matter because you assign the script separately. So it could be healer, or you could rename it and you could just make it, generic logic. I don't know, whatever. You could make one script that 5 of your classes use, and then you could branch off and just do one script for, say, the healer, or maybe the carpenter or the nurse. Whatever you want to do, you can kind of just change it to whatever here. So okay, so I'm just gonna rename this to sample script. It doesn't really matter. We'll hit set, and now we go into view and edit. Here's kind of the bread and butter of the system right here. You have this big node, and this itself is a trigger, and triggers are comprised of a few pieces. They have a priority, they have a target, they have a condition, and they have an action. So this is pretty much the most basic kind of trigger you can have for a script, which basically says target any enemy who is the weakest and use your default attack, which is basically what already happened in the game. So with that in mind, you can kind of keep this here, and then you can go down and you can add a new trigger. And so let's say that you did want to do something for the healer. So the nurse is kind of your default healer, but she's not the only one that can heal characters. Any character with a healing stone, for example, can do a basic heal on another one of their allies. So you usually want to give that some kind of consideration to healing in almost any script you have, because there's a chance any character could have a healing item. So if you want to change that, we can go over here to, so I clicked on enemy, and so, you know, the 3 basic targets, you're always going to target an enemy, an ally, or yourself, because you might want to do something specific to yourself. If, you know, a healer might want to heal themselves first before they heal an ally. But if we want to heal someone else, we can click on ally, and we can do weakest. So this weakest will work in either case. You know, if you want the weakest enemy to attack, you can do that, or you can use it as a way to filter out the weakest ally. But we don't usually want to do that, because the weakest will always mean someone. So the weakest person on the team might only be missing 1 health point, and you don't usually want to heal them if that's the case. So instead, we can target their HP, their MP, or we can look at other things like how many of their team are alive, what their status condition is, or at the bottom here, you can just default to any for a kind of like sort of a randomized effect. But so let's say we want to check their HP. So by default, it just says equal to 0, which that's not what you want. But generally speaking, HP, you want to heal someone when, I think in the previous game, when their HP was maybe below 40 or 50%, maybe 30. I honestly don't remember, but that's the point, is you can set it to whatever you want. So we're going to say HP, we're going to choose less than, and let's just say, for the sake of example, we'll go with 30%. So let me just pick 30%. And so you'll notice right here, we're in a weird situation, because we have ally HP less than 30% default attack. Well, obviously we don't want to attack our ally. The thing is with this system, the system will try to be smart. So if it came across this command at runtime right here and saw that you were trying to attack your ally, it would just ignore this. It won't let you attack an ally. It won't let you heal an enemy right now. It puts basic constraints on what's possible so as to kind of not mess up what the game should and shouldn't be able to do. So instead of default attack, we can just kind of go down through here and we can choose, for example, we can just say strongest heal, right? Because generally speaking, you probably want to use your strongest heal to heal someone. But it doesn't have to be the strongest heal. You can also choose to do a group heal. So if just one of your characters is below a certain percentage, you can just apply a group heal if your character has one. Or you can also choose specific skills. So if you know you're working with the nurse has the first aid skill. So you can say, you know, use first aid specifically. And again, with the system trying to be smart, it's only going to use the skill if the character that you're working with actually owns that skill and they have enough magic points to cast it. You know, the game's not going to crash, it's not going to lock up or anything. It's just going to basically, it will do its best to match your conditions and triggers, but if it finds something invalid, it just kind of throws it out and ignores it. And no matter what, even if you remove all triggers from your list, there's sort of a default trigger that will always just do your default attack to the weakest enemy, which is what we already have. But it's basically like a fail-safe. So we have first aid here. I could leave it as first aid. I could change it to just heal, which is the skill that the heal stone provides. Or if you want to kind of future-proof it, you know, because you don't know what attacks are going to be added to your team, you can just say, use the more generic strongest heal, and then just go from there. With that in mind, there's a pretty large variety of things you can do to try and target people. Let's say, you know, we've got our default attack here, we've got a default heal here, so I can add another trigger. And, you know, let's say we want to target the enemy team. Well, there's a variety of things we can target on the enemy team. We still have access to HP and MP. We can check the team alive. With enemies, you can check their rank. So, for example, you might only want to do a certain attack on an enemy when their rank is equal to mini-boss. Or maybe it's boss or dungeon boss. Or maybe it's anything, you know, you could set it to anything greater than mini-boss. And that would include bosses and dungeon bosses. So you could kind of grab a couple scenarios with that. So you can check their rank. There's a few specific things here. You can check if an enemy is or isn't ore, because if they are a piece of ore, which is something that spawns in the dungeon, then, you know, you could go over here and change your attack to the pickaxe skill. And that's something that only the miner has. Ooh, I don't see, yeah, so I don't actually have the pickaxe skill in here yet. That's just something I need to add in. I think I just forgot to add it to the list, so not a big deal, but you will be able to specifically target the pickaxe skill, or potentially I could add a category for any like ore damaging skill, just in case we might end up with a character other than the miner who can also damage ore. I'm not really sure at this point, but you know, we try to plan for the future here. Aside from checking for ore, you could also see if their back is turned to you. Of course, you can check their status. The status is probably a little bit more for your ally. If your ally status is, let's say it's negative or neutral, you might want to cast some kind of buff on them. You know, you could check ally status, you could say not equal positive. And if it doesn't equal positive, that means it could be negative or neutral, which in that case, you might want to apply a buff to them. Now, I don't know what that buff would be. It would be whatever your character, whoever's running the script, it would be whatever moveset they have. So maybe if they have something that speeds a character up, or maybe they increases their critical attack, you know, something like that. It'll choose from anything in that list, basically. We just don't have any skills that do that at the moment, but once we do, they would be in here. Another example is that you could do something with the thief. By the way, the thief is in the game. I don't know. I think we posted about that on Twitter. I don't know if I've actually mentioned it here or not, but let's say that the thief can steal stuff. So maybe you only want to steal from bosses because it's more likely that the boss will have a good item. You could say enemy rank, you know, if the enemy rank is equal to boss, then just go over here and select the pilfer skill. And again, this will only work on the thief class, but for any other class, this trigger will just be thrown out and ignored because the game knows that that class can't do a steal. And the other thing, it's not in the game right now. Well, it works behind the scenes, but I don't have it in the editor, is that I would like to add secondary conditions. So you see this little plus sign here. So you could check enemy weakest, and then ideally you would click the plus sign and you would add an extra condition to this target. So you could say maybe enemy weakest and enemy facing away, right? So that would give you the weakest person who is also available for a back attack, which would make it a higher priority in this list here. The system is mostly built for it. It's just that I am a little worried it's going to get convoluted. Like, I want to make sure that people are comfortable with using this as it is right now, because I know that it's a little bit, it feels like a little bit much, you know, especially to a new player of the game. So maybe later in the game, that could be something you could unlock as a special upgrade, is to add secondary conditions to your triggers. And that way it could serve as a more advanced type of element to the game. And then lastly, of course, once you have a list of triggers, it's only natural that you'd want to reorder them at some point. Right now at position number 2, we have the heal, but you might decide that the heal is the highest priority. So if you click on the actual number here, it brings you up a little priority select, and you can just hit up or down, right? So you can see this pop up to the top. So now the number 1 priority is ally HP below 30%. And if you want, of course, you can move it all the way down to the bottom, make it priority number 4, or you just put it wherever you want. So I'll just put it back up at 1. Say done, and that's our soda script. And of course, you can always delete things if you want. You can select the trigger, delete it, and that gets rid of it. So once you have a script, the other thing is you have to assign it. Let's say we're done with our script, we just close out of this menu. Then you can click on Assign Scripts, and this basically just brings up a generic kind of character menu. You know, this will actually be sort of a central point for information on the class itself, like their mastery XP, and then probably in here somewhere you can customize their appearance. But down at the bottom, you'll see active script, and all characters have default as their active script. But once you create other ones, you can simply click the arrows and you will be able to select one of the other scripts you made. So right now we can change between default and sample script, right? Those are the only two. But if we ever did, if we went back to edit scripts, we made a new one. Let's say we made one for the nurse, right? And just say create, and we close out of this, go back to assign, click on the nurse, and we can now select between default, sample, and the nurse script. So we can make sure that she specifically uses that script when she fights in the dungeon. So I think that pretty much covers the soda script system. There are definitely some more intricacies that I should go into at some point, just sort of the considerations to make when you kind of hook up certain triggers and certain conditions together. I like to think that most of it is pretty self-explanatory, and it kind of needs to be that way. From a game design perspective, we want to make it as simple and understandable as possible, while also allowing enough room to work with to actually make advanced decisions for your characters. Hopefully we've kind of hit the target on that. If you can't tell or you hadn't known before, I was heavily influenced by the Gambit system from Final Fantasy XII. That's one of the things I looked into when I first decided to change the original scripting system. A lot of people mentioned the Gambit system from Final Fantasy XII. So once I checked that out, it was kind of like, oh yeah, this is much closer to what I think should be in a game that the average player can understand out of the box without too much explanation. But yeah, I think that's all I wanted to cover for this video. As for next video, you know, honestly, I hadn't put too much thought into it yet. We've been so busy with the alpha that I just hadn't really been thinking about the next video topic. So I thought I would kind of open it up to you guys. If there's anything particular you'd like to see about the game, maybe a certain area of the game, or a game design decision, or any part of the game development process, if any of that sounds interesting to you, you should leave a comment below and let me know. If not, I'm sure I'll come up with something. We're getting a lot of content added to the game now, so there's going to be more and more things to cover, although we want to be careful and not spoil anything, you know, any of the more interesting stuff that comes later in the game. Other than that, thanks again for watching, guys, and I will catch you next time.